Israeli security forces appear to be taking their methods of suppression against Palestinians to new levels. The shocking footage has appeared in media, which purportedly shows undercover Israeli agents abducting a Palestinian youth from a university in the West Bank. Witnesses say that they had disguised themselves as journalists. They also say that at least 2 students were injured by Israeli gunfire during what university officials have described as a barbaric incursion. The incursion is believed to have been carried out by a special unit that, in other instances, have dressed up as Palestinians and have infiltrated into protesting groups to abduct and to injure Palestinians. Some are now saying that Israel has used the same unit to kidnap and to kill Palestinians inside hospitals.
I'm not 100% convinced it's the first time that it's a new type of aggression, but at least it's the first time they've been caught at it. They're very clever at dreaming up new ways to try to repress the Palestinian resistance. From the Palestinian perspective, it's nothing. It's just another twist of the knife. I mean, the Israelis are constantly coming up with ways to try to suppress any kind of resistance, and this student movement at Berzeit apparently was something they felt they needed to put down.
The violent treatment of Palestinians was clear in the Wednesday abducting of a student in the West Bank, in which once again it has brought into the spotlight the Israeli human rights record. This was clearly addressed in a last year report by Human Rights Watch, in which it criticized Israel's policies of repression, institutionalized discrimination, and systematic abuses of the Palestinian population's rights. Human Rights Watch listed 5 categories to be major violations against the Palestinians: unlawful killings, forced displacement, abusive detention, the closure of the Gaza Strip, and other unjustified restrictions on movements, and the development of settlements. One may now ask why the U.S. has closed its eyes on the atrocities of the Israelis against the Palestinians and is instead supporting them wholeheartedly.
At least looking at it from the perspective of the United States, they have succeeded in convincing most people in America that Israel is a real democracy, unlike the other countries in the Middle East, and that the Israelis are law-abiding and democratic and so on. And yet the reality of people who are familiar with what goes on in the occupied territories day to day is that they're constantly disregarding laws and what in the United States are considered constitutional principles in their efforts to attack the Palestinians.
The Israeli parliament has passed a law that authorizes the government to revoke the residency rights of any Palestinian in Jerusalem al-Quds on the grounds of a breach of loyalty to Israel. It thus provides the ground for Israel to revoke the residency of any Palestinian that the Interior Ministry finds a threat. And the threshold for this is so low that it includes a minor offense like providing false information to security forces.
You know, the minister who's going to have this under this new legislation, the minister is going to have authority to revoke the rights of Palestinians there is himself a convicted criminal. But that's no problem for the Israelis. They're all a bunch of thugs, or not all of them, but a great many of them, and they're just obviously going to use this to single out people they don't like and try to. I think probably what they'll do with it is use it to pick off people who are leaders of the community, people who are trying to maintain the cohesion of the Palestinian community in the face of the pressures they're under, and try to maintain some resistance.
The world will sooner or later become more vocal in its criticism of Israeli atrocities against Palestinians. This will specifically come after the world becomes more aware about the sufferings of the Palestinians over the past decades and starts to debate about Israel's guilt over this more often than before. And it will be then that the supporters of the Israelis will have to explain why they adopted policies that eventually deteriorated the plight of the Palestinians over time.